My name is Dave Johnston, but for the most part I go by David Kayle. Just to show, I had a rather unusual childhood and grew up in Montreal and experienced the civil unrest and martial law being declared in 1970 in Montreal was quite a heavy place for, I would have been 18 years old at that time. I just through my secondary school level and knew I wanted to head out west. And it was in '79 that I moved to Grey Creek. My mom spent her summer times furthering her education and sent me off to summer camp. And that was where I first had the experience of doing the leather work. And but the thing I really enjoyed the most was canoe tripping. And northern Quebec is fantastic for interconnecting waterways that have been, and portages to carry from one river system to another. That's the mode of transport that goes way back in Quebec. And I had some amazing experiences in those days. And there was initiation in our summer camp, and there was an initiation process where you got your tribal name was given you, and it was called Lucamus, and with it you got these beads. And so, you know, that was what we all strive for, was at this camp, was to get the set of beads right. I have them on the shelf out there by the door. When I got my name, my Lucamus name they gave me was Wind Traveler, from that experience. And so from that I knew I had instinct towards sailing. There was always something strong in me about catching the wind and sailing on the water. So I knew I wanted to have a sailboat. I wanted to live on water. And Kootenay Lake was an obvious thing. Hey, I got this photo from Tfe Camp. I think it'd be about 1990, 91 or something like that. And there's people on the dock, standing on the dock here. You can see the teepee and the little the beach house there. And there's a canoe there. That doesn't count, that canoe. But that's Ching Ching, the little rowboat. That's the beach skiff. It's a little sailboat. You can see the mast. And then the next one is this one by the girl in the purple. There's a boat there. That's the sailing canoe I have, or less the mast. And the white one is called Acorn. It's a sort of Whitehall style skiff. And okay, well, Peter Duryea was my friend and my inspiration and my instigator, and he was so many things to me. He showed the way. Well, the year that Peter moved to Grey Creek in 1979, he immediately started a community project that was building a ski hut up on the ridge above Crowsdale Basin in Grey Creek. It became known as the Starship Telemark, which was a reference to his previous career on the original Star Trek series. It was very much like a spacecraft hovering above an alien planet up there above the clouds in a snow-filled world. I guess these days it's a little different getting up there, but it is accessible up to the ridge there by from off the Grey Creek Pass. It's sort of an extension of the Sphinx Mountain. It's the ridge coming off the edge of the Sphinx. There's various access points up there, but his next community initiative that I recall, early '80s, was staging plays. For several years, there were new plays, the themes of which were generally about how we communicate with each other and treat our planet. He had a knack for getting all of us to play our own part as ourselves. There was over a dozen community members, Great Creek, mostly Great Creek, who just came and bared their souls to whatever their life was about. That was what the play was about. And it was about us and who we are as a community. We all went to the Spring Healing Festival at Selkirk College, Castlegar, which was a weekend of seminars from various presenters in the atrium above the confluence of the river. And the spirits give a commentary on the state of the human race. You have to imagine earth, air, water, fire, and wood all playing their part. So this play, following along with this play, he wanted to connect with the elements and the spirit beings and the First Nations people. And so he had the whole troupe that year attended the Shuswap Nation Medicine Wheel Gathering in Chase, BC. I'm not sure what the natives thought having their powwow invaded by a troop of us Grey Creekers, in costume no less, with Peter in his long robe speaking with the voice of God and the five elements voicing their bits. It was perfect. I mean, he was all about radiating out that love, or just being totally heart open and bring that out in everybody as well. Like the kids, you see him at the camps, you know, he addressed every one of them and kind of got to know them, who they were and how they felt about things. He was very receptive and very intuitive for the most part. Tfe Camp to me was like some of the most memorable days of my life. All those props I made out there, they were really put to good use, and it was such a joy and wonder to be a part of something so beautiful. While we're on this, I got to actually extend appreciation for Alice Bruce. She was our primary benefactor for the Tfe Camp being there all these 30 years. It was her traditional family retreat on the lake, and it was a wonderful place, and we had an agreement to return it to its, as close as we could to its original condition, and that's how we left it in 2018, and it's no longer functioning. Tfe Camp is no longer. Okay, well, in the mid-'80s, the Forest Service started their first set of 22 cut blocks out on the peninsula here. It was quite alarming to us all because that's our viewscape, you know, we're all looking directly across to the peninsula here in Grey Creek. And they started out with the first 3 cut blocks, and that initiated a campaign for a Stop Clear Cuts Log for the Future campaign was on, and that was quite an initiative, another community project, because there's multiple people. I remember Bruce Fleming and Patty Kelly and other people all helping out on this, making these signs. I still see some of them around today. If you go to any of these protest marches, you'll still see the green stop sign with Log for the Future on it, and into people's driveways and places along the way here, because we put out a lot of those. So Peter was able to get the attention of the Forest Service people as well through that. You know, they were taking notice. The side trip with Herb Hammond, about Herb Hammond, is kind of essential to all this too, because he was blackballed by the Forest Service for his radical forestry techniques, you know, and he wasn't into the typical clear cut and burn operation that they had been doing. And so when they came up with a plan for 22 cut blocks on the peninsula, that was a call to arms here when Peter, as far as Peter was concerned. And of course, he got everybody in the community and the extended community and brought us all together. And this was the same time as Carmana Sound in the west Vancouver Island. For my part, I had already had an interest staked out there in all these historical trails that I'd been discovering. I was already going, when I went out, I took a little saw along with me so I could, you know, help out, you know, clear the trails off a little bit. That's where I first started. And when I came here in '73 down this road, and I discovered all this chimneys and Sawmill Bay and all these trails out there, I was just really absorbed. You know, this is amazing. It's got history, it's got nature, it's got water, it's got all the elemental presence, and in a glorified way. And I was living just up here, so the whole peninsula was my backyard basically, and that's when I started exploring and finding more trails. So one of the first ones I found was William Fraser, who lived up at Fraser Lake. This is his book, Fourscore and More. That's a reference to 80 years and more. I think he was 80 or something when he wrote it. And when I went to interview Bill Fraser about his trail there, he told me that it was a much older trail that he was just preserving, and it went back to, again, to the 1890s, 95 or so, when most of the commerce and even people coming into our area would be dropped off at Smelter Bay again, and from the ferry would drop them off there, and then they would hike over. They would hike up here and then over to get to Crawford Bay. Actually, they mostly were heading for the other side of the creek. In those days, it was called Port Crawford, and the ferry would only come in if there was a load of ore to move out, or somebody, you know, they had to move some mining equipment in, because I think that the early days of Crawford Bay or Port Crawford were about the mines that were up the Crawford Creek Valley. But anyway, over near the Harrington Memorial Church, that was sort of the hub of the community, like the manor, the Wedgwood Manor, and that area. And all the farms and all the old residents, they got turned into the golf course there in the '60s. So, so the trail would go across the creek. It was actually in behind where the old school was. There's a soccer field in behind the hall, Crawford Bay Hall there. There's a soccer field, and that's where the bridge across the creek was right in those days. There's a picture of it somewhere in one of the history books. Bill Fraser told me about this guy, Jack Houghton, who was the postmaster back in 1895 and built that trail across there so he could pick up the mail and get it over to everybody in Port Crawford. So I said, wow, that's great. Now I really got some history developing on these trails. And when I went up there, I found it connected at this point. It connected to what is now called the Haida Land Trail, which goes up here to McGregor Lake. Peter took the EDC, East Shore Development Council. That was another big thing he was into. And Susan Hullen was sitting in as the Environmental Education Center, which were like 3 other operations that our activist front had going here at the time. And so some of these meetings, we had like 20 people, and they went on for years. I think it was like 9 years at least, like all through the 90s, before it was really concluded. And actually, well, I have some of it. I have some of it here. This subunit plan, like that's just our copy of all the matter that was discussed there, and that's just a part of what it was, because there was hydrological studies and wildlife studies. Every department submitted a report. There was an archaeological report from Wayne Choquette, which is really interesting as well. And that led to the Pilot Peninsula Recreational Study, which the interesting part here is on page 2, and it's addressed from Steve Flett and Ken Gorsline and Heather Smith for the were thanked for their part from for the ministries and different ministries. Thanks also to Susan Hullen and David Kayle of the Guiding Hands Recreational Society. Your input into the study was valuable. Without the participation of this society and those individuals who took the time to fill out the questionnaire, this report would not have been possible. So that led to a lot of paperwork, right? And so, well, all along, you see, we ended up getting funding from the Columbia Basin Trust for, I think it was like $2,000 a year we got to work on. But actually, even before we did that, we had a volunteer crew working on the trails. We made this connection between McDonald Beach and Boomer's Landing. This was a pretty rough section of trail. It's called Steep Beach because it is very, very steep through here. And that was a natural connection so that, our participants could actually hike out. We needed a way to get out. If there was if the boat was out of action or see people need to get out of there. And it happened a few times. Sometimes our people would hike in from that way, but that's more of the Tfe Camp lore. But there was also a way out that we had through Lime Lake, because there was a trail. We had a trail to Lime Lake because there was a road in there, but it was only for emergency use. It wasn't part of our whole trail plan thing per se, because the beautiful thing about Pilot Peninsula and the trail network is that the whole core of it here, including the park, is all on Crown land until you get up to here. Fraser Lake, then it becomes private land all the way along here, where this is all private land. And this point here this was the real breakthrough in our trail system, because that used to be private land, and the map just looked like this. But then we found out that this block of land here had reverted to the Crown. It was Crown land. And it was actually part of Chris Choquette's woodlot, because it was Crown land and it was attached to his woodlot. But on the map, it looked like it was private land because the map was older. So, but when I figured that out, oh, Chris, that's your woodlot. And there was actually a trail. There was somebody had done some logging up there and made this road halfway up there. And so there was already a trail leading up there, and it was just a matter of linking it into the old post office trail over here, and that was the big breakthrough, because that's like at the end of Peters Road, at the checkerboard sign in the corner, and just before at the marsh, the estuary here, just as you're going up the hill, there's a trail sign marker there called the Woodlot Trail, and that's why it's called the Woodlot, because it's part of Chris Choquette's woodlot. So. But that was a major breakthrough, because then we had a connection to the public road system here, and we had one here. Anyway, so we had the Youth Corps Trail that connected down. That was good for me though, because like we were down here, and that was a natural connection for the Upper Levels Trail to happen to. That I had already been through there, but there was not that. Once they made their trail there, like there was a, it was ready made the rest of the way. Well, through the time I was running the trail crew up to '99 probably, and then Taz was on my crew, Taz Archambault. There was so many different people on my trail crew over those years. Will Holland and Marty Knox and all sorts of people. Shouldn't even start thinking. But Sam Brown, yeah, he was there too. But Taz was on it, and he sort of took it over for me in '99. And Farley was one of the guys on his crew. So those guys kept up the annual maintenance from the Columbia Basin Trust, and they actually moved it to the next level to extend it into the rest of the East Shore here.